And I know on the campaign trail you've talked a little bit about Flint and your experience in Flint. As the recovery efforts continue there, what have you learned from the situation, and how would that inform what you do as governor?
A couple of things that I've talked to a lot of public officials about lessons learned, things that I really hope that everybody takes away from this. First of all, is when somebody says they have a problem, even if there's disagreement about that the default position should be to believe them. See, in Flint, it's like, well, we got this problem, and somebody says, well, but it's not really a problem, or you don't really understand, or everything is okay. But still, there's something you got to stay at the table, keep talking, keep working toward it, keep validating, keep just getting to the bottom of what it is. And today, I think we have a trust problem, naturally, and so we have to keep working at that. But there's but in the beginning, like, people were right, and the experts were wrong. But then, so that's the first thing. People say they have a problem. Default on assuming that there is a problem. We got to get to the bottom of it, even if it's a different problem than what you think it might be on the front end. The second thing is, don't accept bureaucratic speak as answers to plain questions. It's a frustrating thing about looking backward, and as we sent all these emails out there, and I saw so many of the right questions being asked, but half answers being given that were more compliance speak as opposed to real answers. So as an example, if you were the mayor of a city and you asked your water department, is the water safe in the city? And the water department person comes back and says, according to our most recent set of samples, the Tier 1 sites have tested within the federal lead and copper rule. Now that kind of sounds like a yes, but it's not really a yes, right? Remember the question was, is the water okay? We can't allow for these technical compliance speak answers because there's so many different factors. In this case, is the federal rule or standard even right in the first place? Should that be our standard? What about the samples? Were the samples right? In Flint, it turned out that the samples that were being relied upon weren't as they were represented. And so how about the trend? Maybe it's still underneath the rule, but is the trend looking bad, or is it looking good, or looking stable? I mean, there's so many different additional pieces of information aside from a compliance statement. And that's where I really hope that everybody, every person in public office can take away from this, is that plain answers should be required when plain questions are asked.
So you touched on that, the federal rule standards. Would you push for changing that, at least at the state level? Is that something that you could do? Or?
Absolutely. In fact, I had led the Childhood Lead Poisoning Elimination Board, and even though I know that the name of the board is not necessarily that big of a deal, but it wasn't the lead reduction board, it's the lead poisoning elimination board. And that's huge, right? I mean, even in Flint, the majority of lead poisoning is not and never was from water. It's from lead in paint and dust and soil. And so there was this is a problem across the whole nation. And while it's a lot better than it was when all of us were growing up, it's still, any of it's bad. And so our goal should be eliminate this. So if we apply that to water infrastructure, the city of Lansing is a great example. They decided, without anybody requiring it, that this is a risk that we don't need to have in the ground, right? You can manage the risk, sure, with the right kind of water treatment, but why would you want to leave that risk anyway? So they had a systematic approach, neighborhood by neighborhood, where they just took out all the lead pipes, and over the course, it took them 12 years, but over the course of 12 years, they eliminated that risk from the ground. I think that is that's a reasonable approach. And so as we move forward on how do we all eliminate this risk in the future, that type of an attitude, like, yeah, we've got standards and the standards are a lot better than they used to be, but it's all bad, so let's just take an approach of getting rid of all of it.